I think China's going to win if there's any competition. They're much more adaptable to change and can think maybe 1,000 years in advance. I think that democracy can change a lot faster, but it's not as sustainable.
I don't see it as being a conflict, a physical conflict at least, yeah.
If they did decide to go against us, we would lose, like pretty bad. Because they have such a big military, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that they would get a lot more allies over by them.
Mind just briefly introducing yourself?
我叫胡贝贝. I lived in China for 6 months.
I'm from Seattle, Washington, and I'm 28 years old.
My name's Connor, and I've been living in the States for 4 months now.
What's up, guys? Chris Red. I'm from Houston, 24 years old.
I'm Sydney Green. I'm 24, and I'm from Boston, Massachusetts.
What are the general impressions you get when you hear the word China?
Immediately off the top of my head, think of like the bad air quality, because everything that's made here in the U.S. is made in China. I see a lot of videos of people like apartment tours. They're just like little shacks compared to like what we have. Just shows like how bad the quality of like life is in some places in China.
A lot of change recently. How they've transitioned from a developing country into a dominant first world country.
Where you lack in human rights, you can build a train really quick if you don't care about moving minorities around.
I know that they have an incredible economy. I had a friend in college who's from there, and we just grew up in very different ways. They're very family focused. Her family was very like, you must excel in academia. That was like her biggest priority because she didn't want to upset her family.
We went to Xinjiang.
Okay.
It was nuts. The train there took 46 hours because there was someone who was like trying to smuggle someone else out, and the whole train had to be searched over, and we ran out of food and water. That was a pretty terrifying experience. Just talking to people who were like, yeah, I haven't seen my wife in a couple years now. She was just taken. Or someone who's like, this used to be my place of worship, and now it was burned down.
You did feel that there was like certain advantages of being a foreigner in China.
Oh yeah, I didn't pay for quite a few things my first like couple months, and I was like, this is amazing, I should live here forever. And it took me a couple more months to realize like, oh, I was just being used to benefit someone else. I was relieved coming home.
And I worked at a biotech company based in Boston that was started by a Chinese PhD student, and I was really optimistic and excited about the US and China collaborating. But then over the course of the 3 or 4 years I was at the company, the relationship between our sister company in China and in the US completely started to deteriorate. We felt like we were doing a lot of the science, but then it wasn't really a true partnership. And then as such, geopolitics between the US and China also were deteriorating in the background.
At this point in time, do you feel like China is like a threat to America or a friend or kind of a rival?
I think our country thinks that they're a threat.
They have the power economically to put America in our place without having to even go to war. China has proven itself to be able to really produce advanced manufacturing on the level of America, if not better and faster and more effectively.
That's the next rising power that's kind of coming up for America now. I can see that as a threat for a lot of American citizens, for sure, yeah.
We don't know right now. I mean, with the amount of debt that we owe them, and we're never going to resolve that debt because it just goes up literally every second of the day. So
Yeah,
until
they
that
could
day
recall
comes
the
that
debt.
they make an announcement or decide they want to go against us, then that's when we'll find out. Then we have a problem.
Yeah. What do you think that like China and Xi Jinping in particular kind of wants or desires?
They're having to bend the knee to America empire. I think they want to say, no, we view ourselves as the center of the world.
I wouldn't be surprised if they have a 100-year plan, a world dominion, and the United States can only think 2 years ahead.
What do you think the likelihood of the US and China going to war in the next maybe 10, 20 years would be?
I would say it would be a proxy war or economic war. Then it would be a full-on US-China war conflict. That would be catastrophic.
I think China's going to win if there's any competition. They're much more adaptable to change and can think maybe 1,000 years in advance. I think that democracy can change a lot faster, but it's not as sustainable.
I don't see it as being a conflict, a physical conflict at least, yeah.
If they did decide to go against us, we would lose, like pretty bad. Because they have such a big military, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that they would get a lot more allies over by them.
Have you heard of a country called Taiwan?
Yeah, definitely. I live in Culver City, and there's a great Taiwanese place. Oh my God, super, super delicious. It was a noodle dish with chicken, and it kind of reminded me of Pad See Ew.
All I know is that it's beautiful, and people tend to really like the cities. One of my sociology professors was Taiwanese. He had nothing good to say about Taiwan. It's becoming more Western and more capitalistic and less socialistic, and that's not really what we're trying to do with this country. General lack of obedience. It was a lot of that.
It's like China's trying to take Taiwan. Taiwan's the center of World War III. Semiconductors are the most valuable resources. They want to get access to it. China has always viewed Taiwan as part of China. The China-Taiwanese like civil war like many years ago. And A lot of people in Taiwan are like a little bit indifferent, just maybe don't want things to change, but it seems like things are hitting a crossroads.
I know a bit of history about Taiwan. I know how it was founded with the Communist Party and I guess like the more democratic party. They had a war. The people from Taiwan got pushed back to Taiwan, and then the people of China kind of took over the mainland China. Now there's a bit of conflict now between mainland China and Taiwan. Mainland China wanting to claim Taiwan as the true China, and then Taiwan wanting to claim mainland China as the true China.
So you feel like living there as a foreigner or as a Taiwanese would be safe at this point?
100%, yeah. Well, I got family there, so he's been there for like 10, 15 years, speaks fluently. His son's there as well, and his daughter goes over there selling ice hockey stuff.
We wanted to stop in Taiwan, and I was like a bit hesitant. Yeah, you could say it's completely safe to be there in Taiwan, but then things can change really quickly.
And what do you think the likelihood of China actually like taking Taiwan in the next 5 to 10 years would be?
I don't think it's that great. I think there's a threat there, and I think like the news kind of pushes it to be a bigger issue than it is, because that's what American news does.
Yeah.
I don't think China wants a hot conflict to do a full-on sort of invasion. China plays very long games.
I feel like this is kind of a more popular issue in recent years.
Yeah, definitely. With China becoming more of like a mainstay in like the world, a lot of their domestic issues or international issues get a lot more light.
Yeah, I would say it is kind of a hot topic. In the community that I'm a part of, it's like front and center, which is like kind of this tech American dynamism community.
Politics, they just add unnecessary stress. The little things about like politics in China, it's like, let them do their thing. It's not affecting us. If they're happy over there doing whatever they're doing, that's fine. As long as they interfere with what we're doing in the U.S. with like our trades and whatnot, then good on them.
Seeing the news that they projected about us and our news about them, it all felt quite false and hard to comprehend.
I wish I had facts. I tend to stay away from news. It tends to bring me down.
Do you think that if China did invade Taiwan, that America would be willing to get involved in another conflict?
With the current like administration that we have, I want to say no, just because with the polls coming up next year, I don't think that they want to jeopardize anything that can stop the re-election from happening. But would we fund it? Maybe. It's kind of like a Ukraine thing where we didn't go to fight, but we did send them like a lot of resources and money to help them.
Don't think so at all. They wouldn't want to send any resources over there. It tends to be in line with how our country has handled things historically.
Do you have anything you'd like to say to the people of Taiwan?
Their biggest problem is actually their biggest opportunity. They have a lot of power to broker than they realize, being in the middle of it, between connecting the Eastern and the Western world.
Lovely dishes, lovely dishes.
I'd love to visit. It looks pretty insane. I heard it gets really hot there. I'd love to look at Taipei. It looks like a beautiful city.
If anybody from Taiwan or China ever wants to come to America, just come visit. It's fun. People are nice here. We're nicer than you think.
我喜欢喝 Poncho